It's Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm your host, Cecilia Sapp, and we're so excited to be back for Season 6 and continue bringing you outstanding ideas and thought leaders and different ways of thinking. So don't forget to subscribe because you're not going to want to miss any of it. This week I'm joined by first-time guest Owen Kavanagh, and he's here to share some insights and advice on communicating success from awards to proclamations. You don't want to miss this one. It's supported by our partner, USAE News, the paper of record for the association industry. Check out their website at usaenews.com and get a subscription. It's November 18th, 2024. Welcome to episode 263. Hey everybody, it's Monday, November 18th, and that means it's time for another episode of Radio Free 501c. I am your host, Cecilia Sapp. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips Consulting, and we're so glad you're here with us this week for this episode. It's going to be a fun conversation about communicating success. But before I introduce my guest and introduce our topic, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, to our whole global audience. And thanks again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed or followed us yet on your favorite podcast service, please take a moment and do that so you don't miss any exciting episodes. We're coming up on Thanksgiving here in the United States already. It's hard to believe 2024 is going so quickly, but we are thankful to have a first-time guest. We've had a lot of first-time guests this year, Owen Kavanagh, and he's here to talk with us about communicating success. But before we start that part of the show, Owen, welcome. It's so great to have you here. And could you please say hello to the audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Well, hello to the audience. My name is Owen Kavanagh. I'm here representing my company, Kavanagh Solutions, where I'm a consultant on everything AI. And I am also not representing, but I am a part of the Atlanta Apartment Association as a new events coordinator, which was an exciting change since I was initially booked. So we're very, very excited about that as well.
That's great. Congratulations, Owen.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is always great to kind of go from working without a net on your own to working with a net and a team. So that's always wonderful. So, and hey, are lucky to have you.
I love having a 401c CK, C3 again.
1K.
Something like that. But essentially, they pay me extra money and it's amazing.
And it goes into retirement, which is even better.
Because everyone's got to retire sometime.
That's right. At least we hope so. So, well, this is great. So you have a lot of personal success going on right now that you're communicating. And you wanted to talk with us this week about communicating organization success and ways that you can do that. I think we're all really bad at tooting our own horn, as the saying goes, and bragging on ourselves and saying what we're doing well, and just saying to people, hey, I did good. And I think that is an organizational challenge as well. So you had mentioned award programs for organizations are a great way for organizations to do that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So awards, there's an award for everything. You throw a stone, you'll hit at least 3 or 4 different awards for throwing that stone. The important part isn't necessarily getting the award, it's communicating it and showing what you're communicating through that award. So associations do a lot really well in terms of advocacy, in terms of networking, in terms of fundraising. But being able to point to something very concrete and say, hey, not only am I doing this well, someone else has also noticed that. You can point it out to members and say, this is the value that you get from being a part of my association. You get an award-winning advocacy program, an award-winning membership program, an award-winning fundraising program. And it's a great jumping off point for anything to really toot your own horn and be able to not just come out and be confident and say, hey, I'm amazing at this. You can say, well, you know I'm amazing at this, but now they do too. And thank you so much for being a part of that member. So it really gives you the opportunity to not just communicate that success, but turn it around and thank your members for it while bragging on yourself, essentially.
Well, and it's always great to get external confirmation that you're as great as you're telling people you are, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like we want that. We want to make sure we get some objective support for those statements. And I think that's really a great point, though, that an organization that has an award winning program of some kind can not only say to people, hey, here's part of your member value, but you can be proud of this too. Do you have a lot of people ask you about that aspect?
Not specifically necessarily. It's more uh, the award itself is really showing the outside world and even your staff, because that's a resume builder right there too, to say, hey, I was a part of this Summit Award if we're talking uh, ASA itself, which is their highest honor, or something slightly smaller in their gold, or I believe it's Gold Circle is
Yes,
their other award. Yeah, so getting one of those is not just something the organization can really point to; it's something the staff can point to as part of their career building, and members can even point to it and say, well, obviously, even if they don't know what our Association of Associations is necessarily, they can say, well, shoot, ASAE is really noticing our associations doing well, so we must be amazing.
and that gets me wondering. I was very involved with Gold Circle Awards when they first brought it back years ago. Because I used to be
Yeah.
on the ASA Communication Council, and that was one of our projects. And I was so glad we were able to bring it back. But a lot of people, of course, they submit their application, they don't get selected because not everybody can win. But is that something people can still use and say, hey, we entered this award program? Is that something people should share?
Not necessarily share, but I think the process of applying for those awards will really bring out a lot of the important parts to actually winning the award and communicating that. Because even if you don't win, you've still done the process. You've identified where you're successful, what you're doing well. And even if you don't win and don't have that concrete thing to point to, you can still turn it around and say to members, hey, we're doing this really well. Here are all the metrics we pulled for this awards program, but maybe don't mention the awards program if you didn't win, but you
Oh,
can still point to the concrete metrics that you have that you were pointing to and say, like, we increased member retention 50% over the last year. We advocated for X, Y, and Z. We got this bill passed. We got that bill passed. We really did succeed in every way that you want us to, and here's how. So I think it's more than anything, the awards program itself is an opportunity to identify and look and reflect on what you've done well in the past year and the past couple of years. And there's other opportunities besides just awards. So you can, if you're at all involved with your local government or your state government, you can get a proclamation made. All that's really required for that is some kind of relationship with a legislator, because the legislature or the legislator has to put forth the proclamation, or a city council member, and they'll be able to say declare it's radio free 501(c)(3) day in
oh.
the beautiful city of Atlanta or anything like that. And so you can point to that to members as well. And it's not an award, but it is something that is given to you by a third party, really identifying you as succeeding in some way.
That's such an excellent idea. I have not thought about proclamations for years. I think they're such a great way to recognize people. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and my uncle Julius was a really well-known local person,
Mm.
well-known local football coach. And when he retired, they had a proclamation and made it Julius Blanky Day in St. Louis, Missouri. So, and it's very cool, and you get the nice document that you can
Mhm.
frame and you can share that with people. That's a great idea. What are some other lesser known ideas that organizations could use like that, like along the line of proclamations? I love also using the data that you collect for an award application, even if you don't win, to say, hey, look at all these great things we've done. That's another great way to repurpose your research and your content. But are there some other things the rest of us may not be noticing, like the proclamation?
Yeah, so there's one that seems obvious but may not be. So as an association, you can actually give out awards yourself. So not to yourself, but if you kind of shout the horn for your members, you can then turn that around and say, hey, we have award-winning members at this point. Even if it's your own award, you're still kind of having this process where you are identifying the best of the best within your organization, and point them out. So that's kind of a little obtuse way of tooting your own horn by tooting the horn of your members. and it'll give them an opportunity to really show you what they're doing well as well. And then you could also work with your local SAE. So for me, it's the Georgia Society of Association Executives. There's as far as I know, there's one for just about every state. But they'll often do awards. They'll often also do ways that you can get involved and speak for their annual conference or for events they've got going on. That's another great way to show what you're doing well. So for me, I'm a member of GSA. I'm also the Communication SIG co-chair. We had a few people speaking on what they were doing in government affairs, and that was an opportunity for them to show kind of what they were doing well and give other members of our association the best practices they were doing. So that's another key point is kind of spreading the best practices so we all do better.
Oh, that's great. And that's to me sort of an obvious thing, but it might not be obvious to other people because they might just be thinking, oh, well, we're getting together with our special interest group and we're talking and may not be thinking about it from that perspective. And your example of giving out awards to bring attention to what the organization is doing, I think that's an excellent one. You mentioned ASAE has the Summit Awards. Association Forum does 40 under 40.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's other groups well, there's also groups that do recognition of a different kind, which is accreditation programs.
Mhm.
And I don't think we think of those as ways of recognizing people and setting the organization apart. So, for example, the American Healthcare Association, AHCA, has a three-level accreditation program for long-term care facilities, and you have to go through all three levels to get to the top. You can't start at the top. So you have to do them all. And that's a really great way to bring attention to AHCA and the organization or facility that earns those designations. So do you think now, probably not the best idea, but do you think you should start an accreditation program just so you can recognize people or?
So it's a bit putting the cart before the horse. It's chicken or the egg. So with a lot of these programs, you have to consider what's the value I bring, not just the program itself, but actually the process of it. So with accreditation, what you're doing is not just, giving someone a little sticker essentially and saying we believe in them. You're also having them go through this process of not just getting the sticker, but showing why they deserve it, why they are worthy of it to an extent, and being able. So the process, I think, and the reason behind the award is even more important than the award itself, because as I mentioned earlier, awards are a dime a dozen. I could list off quite a. I actually have a list ready of different awards that associations can apply for in terms of communications, marketing. There's a range of awards. The important part is what you do for it, as well as when it comes to accreditation, how you get it. It's not just the award itself, it's the process. And the process, I think, is the key point of it because it shows what you're doing well and it gives you the opportunity and the reflection to say what you're doing well to your members.
And well, and here the thing about award programs is, and this is a little bit of a ethical conundrum for me, I guess, or maybe not a conundrum. It's a conundrum for the organization. It's just kind of annoying to me. I think if you're applying for an award and you pay the fee and you don't actually qualify for that award,
Mm.
I think that would give your money back and say thank you, but you're not really qualified for this. So, because this year I applied for a couple of awards from major groups that recognize associations, but I submitted on my own behalf for my podcast, and obviously it was very obvious. Well, they weren't going to consider consultants, but
Mm.
they didn't say that, and they kept my money. So it's like I don't know if that's necessarily ethical for the organization to do that. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but I think if you're going to be giving out awards, I think you need to think that through because if you're only going to recognize certain segments of the membership in the award, I think that should be communicated.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a key point to what you said there is uh, I would say you felt a little unhappy about the fact that you didn't get your money back. You felt a little miffed. And if you do that to a member, they could drop. So I think it's important to, especially for your own awards programs, to have that flexibility. So if someone applies and they really don't meet the criteria, like the minimum criteria, I think you should probably give that money back. And give it as a teaching opportunity to not just
Mm.
show that you are being kind and ethical with this, you're also helping that member to grow, to maybe not this year, but next year, the year after, hit that award and maybe even get it. So
Yeah.
by having that flexibility, you're really allowing them to grow, and you're not just saying, "Hey, you don't meet the criteria, we're going to keep your money, and you can just go pound sand or something." And I
Right.
I do think it's a little unethical to keep the money when someone doesn't meet those criteria for the award. And I think as associations, part of our job is to bring that kindness that maybe a corporate award wouldn't have, and that flexibility, because for the most part, we're not huge operations. We're not corporations. We're not for profit. We're here to help, and we're here to uplift our members, not take their money and run.
That's right. Well, and well said. I agree with that. I think that I think we're kind of going off into a little bit different direction with our topic about recognizing people, just recognizing people. I think it's kind of hard when there's not a lot of awards. You said there's a ton of awards. Like you said, if you throw a rock, you'll hit 4 awards for throwing rocks, and that might be true. But I think where it gets frustrating for the general membership population is even if there might be several different awards or categories, there's still only 1 or 2
Mhm.
slots. And
Yeah.
I think finding ways to recognize more people is important. These groups where it's only one person and your chances of ever getting selected for it are slim to none in some situations. That's off-putting, and I think it's exclusionary to a certain degree. And really, you have to think about what you're recognizing when you're giving an award. Are you recognizing that individual's contribution to the profession? Are you recognizing their contribution to the association? And then are you communicating it clearly which one you're doing? There's a lot of that. And I think to your point about communicating success through awards, whether it's the organization getting an award or it giving one, I think it needs to be very clear about what they're recognizing, because that not done well can really cause some bad feelings and turn people off. I don't know what your thoughts are about that. I probably think about awards more than I should, but
No, I completely agree. I think having some clarity in the process itself, like how it's judged, how you're judged, the specific criteria, even a rubric, I think is really helpful to make sure, especially if it's an award you're giving out, and if it's to your own personal members, having that consistency, having that specificity on what you're giving the award for and exactly why is, I think, critical in keeping the members engaged and making them want to do it again. Because that's the key. As you said, not everyone wins. I think more than anything, having people continue to apply even when they don't win is a sign of a good program. Because I think it shows that they know they could win next year. It's not going to be, oh, well, they're the biggest sponsor. Of course they're going to win this award. That gets real dicey when you have, for example, like an associate member or a vendor who's part of your industry but isn't the member that is the full membership type. If they win awards as well, or if that's an award offering, there could be the view that it's pay to win, which you never want in an awards program. You want it to be as fair as possible and as transparent as possible. And sometimes that's just not possible as well. I'm saying possible a lot. It's starting to lose a little bit of meaning there, but having a transparent process, or as transparent as you can make it from a just legal perspective, because that can sometimes come into play as well, is very important for building the reputation of your awards program. Because just because awards are a dime a dozen doesn't mean yours doesn't matter. You want it to matter, and you want it to matter to your members to the point where they will apply for it every year. And there is a difference between, for example, a free award that anyone can apply for with no fee versus one where there is a fee, because there is a level of exclusivity to just having that slight barrier that a fee may have. And some fees, as you I'm sure are aware, can be really expensive on these awards programs,
they can. They actually can
especially.
current, but maybe they're supposed to be, but
Yeah.
that brings it back to your point of making it look like pay to play, pay to win, and we definitely don't want that. You made a comment about there's a lot of awards, but that doesn't mean your award doesn't matter. I think that's really important too, because we all get so caught up in our own professional world that we forget that it's important in our group, and like, oh, this award is so prestigious, but to somebody outside the profession, they're going to be like, what? It's like the
Mhm.
Academy Awards for acting and directing and production. Well, if you're not in the film industry, you probably really don't care, who wins the Academy Award, unless you're a movie fan or a certain actor fan. But like that doesn't really matter to somebody who's trying to win an award for best fisherman
Mhm.
or best fishing boat or something like that, because they're never going to enter that contest. They really, and the Academy Awards are a great example of members recognizing members because it is from their Academy of Motion Picture Arts. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind. That is a member voting award. So you get voted on by all the other members. So that's a little bit different approach as well.
So making sure that you aren't really siloed into your industry and forgetting the outside world is critical. And when it comes to industry awards themselves, you have to really communicate why they're good. You have to communicate through either the transparency of the process for winning the award or through some other metric that this does matter. So in commercial real estate, we have the Energy Star Awards. These are essentially the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, gives these out to properties that meet certain metrics in terms of sustainability. So they're saving X amount of energy each year. And that's actually a physical decal, a little vinyl thing that you put on your building to show anyone coming in, hey, we're saving X amount of energy. And if you look at your appliances, it will have an Energy Star certification on there as well if it is a certain amount of savings or a certain amount better than the average appliance. And that's a really good way to communicate, hey, this is what it means. So as an association, we have to let members and non-members know this is what the award means. This is why it matters. It all comes down to communicating excellence. Even when you are giving out the award for excellence, you have to let them know why it matters. You can't just be, blowing in the wind and giving out pieces of crystal for nothing. You have to actually have some process behind it and show that this matters, this is important, and this is prestigious, even if you may or may not know about it.
Mhm. That's really no, that's funny what you said about giving out crystal for no good reason, because there sometimes people get an award just for being there for a long time, and you want to recognize service, but just having your butt in the seat for 15 years is not really a sign of success or quality. So I think we need to.
Sometimes it just means you didn't move on fast enough.
That's true. I think, well, and I think, there's such a fine line with recognition, and really whenever you have a conversation like this, communicating success, awards, recognition, that's really what we're talking about. And there's so many other ways to recognize our members and the corporate partners we work with or consultants. There's a lot of ways to recognize their contribution without it being a huge application process. So an award program that comes to mind for me is the Association Women Technology Champions Awards Program. They're a 501c3 group, completely volunteer run. And they have an awards program every year where they recognize several individuals, but then they have what they call the champion category. And you can nominate several people. You just put their name in, and then they fill out the application, and then it gets reviewed by the awards committee. And they will usually recognize 10 to 20 people a year, depending on how many nominations they receive. And I think that's really nice because they're not just picking 2 or 3 people a year. They're picking a whole group of people who contribute, because there's so many people in association management, just association management. That's not all the other kind of nonprofits that are out there that we manage, but there's so many people that do what we do, or part of the community, or contribute to the community. And so many people give to the colleagues, they give to their association they belong to, they give to their clients. They're just trying to be helpful. And I think finding more ways to recognize them and communicate their success, that they're contributing, is a great idea. And I think that sets an organization apart as a leader by saying, hey, it takes a lot of people to make the whole organization successful.
I agree completely. And I think that speaks to even a wider view of, hey, Rome wasn't built in a day by just one person. A lot of our associations are really held up by our champions, by our volunteers who really go above and beyond. And being able to recognize not just one, but a whole cohort of those each year is a, I think, great idea that I think ASAE actually does fairly well with the fellows of ASAE program that they run, where you get not just the recognition, but you also get that little FASAE at the end of your name. So that could be a good jumping off point or even an opportunity for other associations to be able to recognize their volunteers who are really going above and beyond and not just hit one person each year, which could be for a membership group of even just 400 or 500 people. If you've got 10 folks who are really involved, really championing your programs, that's 10 years to recognize all of them, and they may not all be there after 10 years. So being able to get a cohort and recognize them, I think is a really important piece that, I mean, that to me sounds like an amazing program.
Well, they're actually fellows programs are a good way to recognize a group of people, especially people who have contributed for a long time. I think the best fellows programs, though, are based on the career and
Mm,
how many year. This is my opinion. It's based on how many years of experience do you have, how much education do you have, how long have you been a member, how much have you contributed as a member. So almost like I used to work at a nursing home administrators group, and the one program that I thought was really great there that I was very proud of was the fellows program because it was an application with a point system. And so it's like if you hit so many points, then you could become a fellow. And it's very similar to medical associations for physicians of all kinds. If you're a member for 10 years, for example, you can then become a fellow of the organization because that means you have a lot of experience and you've been a member for a long time. And so I remember when I was a little kid, I used to like that TV show Emergency about the paramedics, and they worked with the doctors at the hospital, and the doctors all had a FACS after their name. And when I was little, I thought, oh, that's so cool. Look at all the letters after their name. They must be really good. And then I grew up and I was like, oh, that means they're a fellow of the American College of Surgery. And so, which is good because there's that longevity there, that long-term commitment to be a member, to contribute. So I think there's lots of different ways to do fellows programs. And I agree that is a great way to recognize a whole group of people all at once that have been doing things. So it's really and you really don't want it. One of the things I think starts to happen sometimes with some of these recognition programs is people start thinking the fix is in. If you don't know someone who knows someone, you're not going to get in. And we really don't want that attitude. So your points earlier about transparency and clear communication are really key to that.
absolutely. And I think there's nothing clearer than being able to say, well, uh, Johnny Doe's been a member for 10 years. You can see that. You see him in the photos. You've seen him at different events for 10 years. You can say, yeah, he's been there. He's been active. He's been doing his part. So yeah, and having that point system, I think, speaks to that transparency very well as well, especially if everyone knows what the system is, not necessarily how many points everyone has, but being able to point to something that concrete, I think, is critical when you're looking at fellows or when you're looking at any kind of recognition for an individual that's not just a piece of crystal.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's so interesting because people just still really appreciate a thank you note. They don't need a certificate. They don't need a plaque. They don't need a crystal ball. They just want somebody to take a moment to say, dear Bob, thank you so much for contributing to the committee this year. Sincerely, Jim or Marge, if we want to be like more inclusive. And but seriously, just that thank you note, dear so and so, thank you for your work, signed the committee chair or the staff liaison or whoever is signing the note. I think that really surprised me years ago when that data came out. That's really what people want. They just want to be thanked. And in today's world, it doesn't have to be a handwritten note. It could just be a nice email, like, thank you so much. Here's a gift card or some, a digital gift card. Something
Yeah.
like that. People just want to say, hey, you noticed I showed up. Thank you.
And to that point of kind of giving that thank you note. Earlier, I mentioned that you can shout out your members when you win these awards. That's a really great way if you've got board chairs or your board members who were a part of that process. Sending them a nice thank you note, just printed on some pretty decent cardstock. That's frankly a very cheap way to show appreciation, and people really appreciate that because it's a nice thing. Not everyone does it. Even a handwritten note, not hard to do, but very few people do it now because it's just that slight barrier. And that, I mean, I keep all the thank you notes I've ever gotten pretty much that are handwritten, and I love them. They're a nice piece of history that I can hold on to that I value even more than any of the trophies I have at times because there's
Yeah.
something that someone went out of their way to do for me.
And I'm with you on that, Owen. I keep all my handwritten thank you notes, and they're great for those days where you feel like just nothing's breaking your way. Like the computer is not working, my Zoom account got shut off, my audio's wonky, and then, or if you don't get the job or you don't get the project or something, you read these notes and it kind of cheers you up because it reminds you that you did do something good that contributed to help other people. And I'm with you. They mean more to me than the other things you might get. So, although I do value my 110% effort trophy when I used to play volleyball, CYC, I
Oh,
still have.
absolutely. No, there's no topping that.
So that was like the MVP award in CYC. So, but all kidding aside, I think your points about communicating success for the organization through getting an award and then sharing that success, I think is the key to what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just it's the process. You've
Mm.
gone through this, you've shown your excellence, and now you can point to that very process to your members with this award and say, hey, this is why we're good for you. This is why you should be with us. And you can then turn it around and give that thank you note, give that special moment people can look back on to your members and say, this award isn't just because of us, this is because of you. You can say that, hey, we're a member organization. We wouldn't have won this without your input, without your help, without your support. So you can turn around this way to toot your horn as a way to toot theirs and make everyone feel better all at once while still, showing you're a great organization that they should be a part of.
I was just thinking that would actually be kind of a fun thing to do at an annual conference. Give everybody those little horns that you can beep. Like, hey, everybody, shoot your horn because we won this big award this year and it's
Yeah.
everybody did it. That would be fun.
And
So
it'd be a great little piece of swag people could keep, and it would be a trophy in and of itself.
yes, it would be. Yeah, I love that. So, wow, this has been a great conversation, Owen. You've been a great guest. I hope you'll come back uh, and talk with us again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and when I get ready to wrap up an episode, I like to ask my guest, what is the one thought you'd like the audience to take away today? And how can they get in touch with you if they'd like to talk with you more about this topic?
So I think if you don't take away anything else from today, being able to identify what you're doing well and being able to continue doing that thing well is critical. You don't win awards by suddenly having an epiphany. You win them by coming in, day out, and doing good things. And being able to communicate that, you can't communicate anything if you're not doing anything well. So identify what you're doing well, keep doing it, and keep succeeding in that way. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can always reach out. My website is ks-usa.com. You can get in touch with me through there, or you can drop me a line at owen@ks-usa.com if you ever want to talk about awards programs.
Well, you know a lot about it, so I encourage people to reach out. So, well, that's it for this week's episode. We have to go rogue for now. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization think differently and bloom outside the box, check out our website, roguetulips.com. If you're interested in ongoing education for nonprofit executives, specifically if you are getting ready for the CAE exam, or you need to get that ethics credit for your CAE renewal, check out our education page. Also, visit our podcast page and check out our blog, Going Rogue. Also, sharing some good news. People have been encouraging me for years to write a book, so I finally did it. That's coming out November 22nd. Association Chapter Systems. Thank you, Owen. Owen's clapping if you're listening and not watching. Association Chapter Systems from Frustrating to Fruitful. That's coming out through Broken Column Press, which is owned and operated by Carl Weaver, who's also the publisher. So look for that book on Amazon on November 22nd, which is also St. Cecilia Day. So help me celebrate my name day and check out my new book. So that's it for now. On behalf of Owen and myself, we will see you next time.